live stream. Today is it's Wednesday, July 8th, and we're going to be talking about CPU performance and how it relates to gaming. Just going to put a little bit of background music there. Yes, this is live, and yes, we will have some Q&A, and the Q&A will be at the end. Probably going to take about 20 minutes to explain just some very basic concepts about CPU performance and kind of what you should be looking for if you're looking to run certain kinds of games. So yeah, without further ado, I know my voice cracks a lot, but anyways, without further ado, we're going to get into it. And the first thing we really need to understand before we want to look at CPUs is what application we want to run, because based off of the application we want to run, it's gonna vary to, like, if we know what application we want to run, then we can decide what kind of hardware we need in order to run that application. So for this example, we're going to say we want to play Fortnite because Fortnite is a popular game, and yeah, a lot of people want to play it. So I do have this, I found this online, whiteboard, so I'm going to be using this here to explain as best as I can, just CPU performance and stuff. Welcome, Marco Mazzi, welcome, Pikachu MP4. Oh, it's Vincent, you changed your name. All right, that's right. Yeah, I remember seeing you in a lot of the other previous live streams. But yeah, basically the first thing we want to do is understand what application we want to run. For this example, we are going to be running Fortnite. And yeah, now that we understand what application we want to run, then we can start looking at, okay, what kind of hardware do we need? Am I going to start making thumbnails, Hockey Rat? Absolutely, eventually. I definitely need to start doing that. But basically, with Fortnite, like the goal, there's going to be a couple things. There's either, if we want to get 60 FPS, we're going to need a certain level of performance. I know my writing is terrible. If we want to get 120 FPS, there's going to be a certain level of performance required. And if we want to get like 144 frames per second plus, then we need a certain level of performance for that. And for CPUs, like, my goodness, there's a lot of different options. You can either go with like a 10-year-old 6-core 12-thread Xeon from 2010, or you have the newest Ryzen 3 or Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7 CPUs. And I'll try to go over each one of these different categories and what kind of processors we'd want to use for them. So for 60 frames per second, to run a game at 60 I know there is 160 FPS as well. Yeah, the Ryzen 3 is good. But for 60 FPS, generally Fortnite only, like, it's not as demanding to run. So for example, Fortnite might only need about, yeah, let me use the shape tool here. Fortnite may only need about 4 cores, let's say 3 gigahertz. I know, we're going technical already. But I'm going to try my best here, and if you need something in chat, you can let me know, and I'll try to get to you guys pretty quickly. But basically, for 60 FPS, let's say Fortnite requires 4 cores, and each core needs to be running at a relative clock speed of 3 gigahertz. I'm not too familiar with this tool here, but bear with me here. But yeah, let's say they need to be running at about 3 gigahertz per core. So that's 4 cores. And we're not going to get into hyper-threading and stuff yet, but that's basically 4 cores, and they're all running at 3 gigahertz, which gives us a smooth 60 FPS gaming. So that means you can run the whole game, there's not going to be any stutter, and you'll get 60 FPS. But let's say you want to play more competitively. Then you can either look at, alright, maybe in order to get a higher frame rate, we need to boost our clock speed, which clock speed plays a huge... I know I am an artist, but clock speed plays a huge role in performance. So if we're going to take a step back here, let me see if I can't. I'll just copy paste this, open up a new whiteboard here. We're going to take a step back and talk briefly about the CPU. So with each CPU, there's kind of 2 lines here. You have your multi-core performance, which... yeah, my drawing is horrendous. I'm going to try to use a text thing here. So you've got your multi-core performance, and then you also have your single-core performance. This is actually a really handy tool. I should have found this a lot earlier. So we've got our multi-core performance, and then we also have our single-core performance. This is a little bit small here. Bear with me here. This is going to be interesting. So V to grab this over and text. There, we've got multi-core performance, and then as well we have single core performance. And single core performance is generally related to clock speed. It's not like just because my CPU runs at 5 gigahertz compared to someone else's who runs at 3 gigahertz doesn't mean it's going to be any better. But we'll get it. Like, there's so many technicalities to this, and that's why I want to try to explain all of this kind of stuff, because there's a lot of people who are looking for budget systems. They don't have $1,200 to spend, but they have like they might have, like, let's say $500 to $600, which, if you understand the very basics about computers and you understand, okay, most games are more CPU dependent than GPU dependent, then you can actually go out and be like, okay, I'm going to buy a old used refurbished workstation from 2013. I'm going to upgrade the CPU to a 6-core 12-thread Xeon. Yes, it is 8 years old, but because I understand enough of what affects like games and what affects the performance in games, you can go about building a super solid gaming system. And yes, it does take quite a bit of time to understand how the system works, but if you are on a budget and you want, like, let's say you are on a budget and you want to play video games and stuff like that, I'd recommend, like, spend the time, try to learn like about like the CPUs, try to learn about what affects actual gaming performance. And yes, when you first get into this, welcome Hotspur and welcome Francesco to the live stream. When you first start learning about this, it is going to be very complicated, because it's like learning a new language. You don't have any context for it. But as soon as you start, like, for example, when I started learning about this, I started looking at like video benchmarks of different CPUs, and I would watch, like, okay, this CPU was able to play most games at, like, let's say 60 FPS without stutter. And then the more demanding games, it couldn't run well, or the CPU usage was pegged at 100%, which would give stutter. Like, I would just watch a ridiculous amount of benchmarks. And then eventually, when I started, like, for example, when I wanted to build my first like, kind of budget gaming system for myself, because I wanted to play newer AAA title games, I didn't want to just play, like, what are they called? Like let's say League of Legends, for example, which is not a demanding game, and I wanted to play, like, let's say something like Fortnite or the new Call of Duty Warzone. That's where I started doing research of, like, okay, what's a decent budget gaming system and stuff. Anna Carter, welcome to the live stream. Yeah, it's been quite a while. So, right, single core performance. We can't spell that, but yeah, we're going to do single core performance here. I think we hit enter and we should, there we go. We've got our single core and multi-core performance. And basically there's you need a certain level of both of these to kind of play your games smoothly here. All right, let's see. You're building a $400 budget PC. Nice. Like, this is like when you have a budget, like a lot of people like yourself who are on that strict budget, it's kind of like you have to do almost more work than someone who has $1,500 and can just buy the latest and greatest, because you have to make sure that each dollar you spend actually goes towards performance for the specific game or application you want to run. So let's say, for example, for single core performance, we're going to need a minimum, let's go to our text here, a minimum of, let's say, 100 points. And I'm just going to use points for an example here, just because, yeah, it's just for the example. So we need 100 points. Let me edit this here. We need 100 points for single core performance. And for a solid gaming system with multi-core performance, we're going to need, let's say, 600 points. And that'll run most games. So, for example, it's kind of like, this is the, right, this will be 100 here. So this is our kind of baseline for single core performance, and then our baseline for, actually that doesn't need to be our baseline. This will be our baseline for multi-core performance. So as long as you have a system that's further in, like, higher in single core, higher in multi-core, you'll run well. Hang on, I'm just going to read chat quickly, and then I'll keep trying to explain this for you guys. We will have Q&A probably in about, let's say, 20 minutes after I explain all this, because I know you guys have a lot of questions there. So it's either you can hang in here and I will do my best to explain this, and then I can get to all your questions. But yeah, I'm trying to really stay on focus here, like, and just get through this here, and then I can answer all your questions. Like EKSDI, you have a good question there. W3680 versus E51620. I can get to all your questions at the kind of when I wrap up from here. So yeah, basically for single core performance and multi-core performance, you need a certain level. So let's say for Fortnite, a good example for a CPU that can run Fortnite around 60 FPS to 120 FPS is the i7 2600. And I'll bring up the specs for you in a second. And basically the single core performance on this CPU has about 120 points on single core performance. So that's on the individual core. It scores about 120 points in a certain benchmark. And then all 4 cores and 8 threads combined for multi-core performance, you score about 600 points. And all of this is very important. You need a certain level of single core and a certain level of multi-core. Here's a good example of why you need a good mix of both. A popular CPU that a lot of people use is the 4th Gen i7, actually the 4th Gen i5. I'll quickly bring the specs up on it. So it's the i5-4590. The CPU has, let's go here. The CPU has 4 cores and 4 threads. It has a base clock of 3.3 gigahertz. It'll turbo up a little bit and give you a little bit more performance. Let me pull up the live chat. But the problem with it is that it doesn't have enough multi-core performance. So in games like, let's say, Call of Duty Warzone, yes, you can run the game on this 4-core, 4-thread CPU, but because it doesn't have enough multi-core performance, it doesn't allow you to run the game smoothly. So yeah, it's like, this stuff is a little complicated, but we'll get through it. But yeah, so for example, if you want a solid CPU that'll run most AAA title games smoothly, you need to look at something like an i7-2600 or better. And now let's say if we want to run around that 120 FPS mark. So as long as we have our multi-core performance covered, then the limiting factor for our frame rate is going to be single core performance, because single core performance kind of determines how high your kind of max FPS will be, and multi-core performance just determines whether or not you can run the game smoothly at that given frame rate. So it's kind of a mix of both. It's like a car. If you have a large engine, if you have a large engine, like maybe 300 horsepower, it can go really fast. But if you don't have, like, let's say you don't have a transmission and you only have gear 1, like, yeah, maybe you can only go 100 kilometers an hour at like 9,000 RPM. But that's why multi-core performance, it's like you have a transmission, you can shift up in gear, and then that's why on large, let's say straightaways, you could probably get to like 200, 250 kilometers an hour and go cruising. So it's a mix of both the single core and multi-core performance. For 120 FPS, basically, if we follow the same principle, we just need a better single core performance. And as long as the multi-core performance, basically, as long as your CPU is not running at 100% under load, then you will be able to get a higher frame rate. So for example, at 120 FPS, consistently smooth, you might need here, let me go to the text here. You might need, here, let's go to text. You might need, let's say, 200 points on the, or you probably don't need 200, let's say 150. You might need 150 points for single core performance, and then multi-core performance might need to be like 800, for example. So now, if you want to play at 120 FPS, this is where your processor needs to fall in line there. And there are a lot of different processor options to run. So for example, if you want to play at 120 FPS, you might need a CPU more along the lines of, you could probably run a 6-core Xeon like an E5-1650 at 4 gigahertz. You could probably get 120 FPS smooth, or you would probably want to also look at like the Ryzen 2600 overclocked to about 3.8 gigahertz there. And obviously, like, there's a lot of different options available. But yeah, the higher the frame rate, and yeah, the higher the frame rate, you need a higher single core, and you can't cut out on that multi-core there. I know this is confusing, but anyways, I'll start reading live chat for you guys. Alright, let's see who's in chat here so I know which questions to get to first. Alright, EKSDI. So yeah, if you are looking to game, the W3680 will be better. The W3680 will be better for most games, because here, let's draw up the CPU for you here. The W3680, you have 6 cores and 12 threads, which basically gives you a solid multi-core performance. So what are you looking at here? You'd be looking at probably about 120 single core and about, let's say, 800 multi-core, which will allow you to play most AAA titles really well, and it is better than the E5's 1620. The only thing you need to consider between those two CPUs is that the W3680 is on the X58 platform, which is a bit older than the X79 platform. So when considering the different processors, it's kind of like, if if the W3680 and you've overclocked it to 4 gigahertz, if that's good enough, like let's say if 800 multi-core performance and 120 single core is good enough to run your application, which in most cases it will be. It's plenty for Fortnite, it's plenty for running Call of Duty Warzone, and Warzone's really demanding. Then it'll be good enough. But if you want something that you can upgrade later to, like, let's say a 6-core or 8-core part, then you probably want to just stick with the E5, like with the X79 platform, and then just upgrade the processor down the line. But in terms of raw performance, the W3680 is better in my opinion than the E5 1620. Yeah, and Marco Mazzi's right. Having 6 cores, 12 threads as like a baseline is going to be a lot better moving forward into like 2021, using your computer 2022, 2023 when there are more demanding games. Like, let's say, what's that new large popular game coming out? It's something like 2027 or 2070 or no, I don't know. There's like Cyberpunk, that new Cyberpunk game, for example. That's a really, really insanely demanding game, and that's where you're probably going to need a solid CPU and GPU to run it. I think I was reading like the minimum specification requirements to run the game smoothly. You need like a GTX 1070 or something crazy. All right, let's see. Anna Carter with your question here. You bought an i3-9100F. That's good. Let's see. Yeah, the i3-9100F is definitely a lot better than the i7-2600. I mean, you're just looking at age there. Like, I mean, just based off of the architecture and based off of single core and multi-core performance, the 9th gen i3 is a lot better. And we can also just take a look here in our specs. So if I pull this up here, you can quickly look the it's the i3 9100F. We can quickly take a look at the specs. And when you are comparing CPUs, a really popular benchmark that I like to use is Cinebench R15 or Cinebench R20. Both of those are really good. And let's say you have a system now, and if you want to have context to how a different system may perform, I recommend download Cinebench R20, download Cinebench R15 on your system. You can run it. It gives you a benchmark score for both single core and multi-core performance. Once you understand where your system kind of stands in the stack of different CPUs and CPUs in terms of single core and multi-core performance, then you can hop on the internet, you can go to YouTube, you can search up benchmarks for that. Like, I could search up, let's say, i7-2600 Cinebench R15 score, and then I can compare it to different processors and get an idea of how a different processor will perform. Alright, let's see. Triple Furious, welcome to the live stream. Let's see. You bought LGA 1151 motherboard. Is Dell T3600 good with the E5 1620 V1, or is Z400? Oh, that's a good question. In this particular case, Triple Furious, I'd recommend you're probably better off going with the HP Z400, running the W3680, kind of the system that you already have now. I wouldn't worry about switching it out, because with the HP Z400, it has a decent stock cooler. So yeah, using that W3680, you can use a program called Intel Extreme Tuning Utility. You can overclock it to 4 gigahertz, and that's where, yeah, you're going to well outperform the E5 1650. But if you wanted to upgrade in the future, you could, well, yeah, it's debatable whether it's worth spending more money on these old platforms. But going with the T3600, you can upgrade the CPU to like an 8-core part in the future. But for now, I think the Z400 with the W3680 will cover most of your gaming needs. Alright, let's see. In Fortnite, you're getting 144 FPS on an i5 2500. I mean, yeah, of course, in less demanding areas of the map, if you're not playing like Team Rumble, if you're not in the end game scenarios for Fortnite specifically, you will be able to hit a much higher frame rate, even on those older processors like the i5 2500. Like, kind of the same problem that most of these i5 CPUs, 4-core, 4-thread CPUs are going to run into now is, yes, they have solid single-core performance, but where they're going to be lacking is on that multi-core performance. So, like, yeah, maybe it runs well for you, but I know for myself, I've tested a whole bunch of i5 CPUs. I've tested the 4th gen i5. Even my good friend has a 4th gen i5 that he's overclocked to like 4.5 gigahertz, but whenever he loads up Call of Duty Warzone, his CPU usage is always pegged at 100%, and he runs into a lot of stutter. And that's why you can actually, instead of going for like the 4th gen i5, which is from 2014, you can actually go back a couple years, buy something like Triple Furious bought on a budget, like the W3680. It has 6 cores, 12 threads. Yes, it has a little lower single core performance, but kind of if your multi-core performance is lacking, then you're going to run into a lot more stutter. Hi Blisson, welcome to the stream. 4x 4GB or 2x 8GB, doesn't matter. It really depends what you're using the system for. So for example, if you're doing like, the only reason it would make more sense to do 4x 4GB is if you're like, okay, I'm not going to upgrade my memory in the future. It's fine if all my memory slots are full. And the only like kind of performance benefit you'll get is if you're using like, let's say like X79, the platform that has quad channel memory, and the specific application you're running utilizes like high memory bandwidth. In most cases, I don't see a big difference in gaming between dual channel and quad channel. Like, of course, it's a blanket statement. Some games will do a little better, but for myself, I like with the X79 workstations that I deal with, I generally just put 2 8GB modules in them. The reason being is that leaves empty memory modules or empty memory slots so people can upgrade in the future. And yeah, it just leaves you a good upgrade option there. So in my opinion, either is fine. I generally just get what's cheaper, or if I know I need to upgrade the memory in the future, I get higher density modules. So basically the 2x 8GB. What do I think of the 3+3 core MOSFET configuration? I actually have no idea about that. Sorry, Francesca. I don't have any expertise there. Alright, let's see. Yeah, kind of, yeah, most people were talking about quad channel and stuff in chat there. Alright, let's see. Yeah, you can't record with the i5 CPU. If you want to record gameplay with most of these like kind of builds where you have a CPU and GPU, most of the gaming graphics cards like the RX 570, even like GTX series of cards going as far back as I think the 600 series, you can use what's known as the hardware encoder, which you can generally find through your you can either use OBS to record and select the basically your GPU encoder, or inside I think like the AMD or NVIDIA drivers, you can use like yeah, you can basically just use the GPU encoder to record your gameplay. But yeah, overall, like the i5 is dead. Like the old, basically if you have an i5 that's 7th gen or older, it's pretty much obsolete in my opinion. Like yes, you can run a ton of games on them still, but they're not long term. They're not going to last you a very long time. But then again, it kind of comes down to what we were mainly talking about. It all comes down to what application are you looking to run, because if you know what application you're looking to run, then you can work backwards and figure out, okay, what parts do I need in order to run the game? So for example, if I wanted, here, let me give you guys a good example. Let's say I wanted to run Fortnite at 144 FPS, like super consistently, and of course this CPU and GPU combination can go higher, but if I wanted to run Fortnite 144 FPS, maybe even close to like 200, the build I would go with is the Ryzen 3300X and pair it, here, let's see, Ryzen 3300X, I'll increase the font size so you guys can see it, and I would pair it with something like a, yeah, RX 570 or RX 470. You don't need a really good GPU because let's say this is for Fortnite. Let's see, Fortnite 144 FPS to, let's say, 200 FPS system. And like by benchmarking Fortnite, I have an understanding that, okay, Fortnite is very it's single core. Here, let me use the text thing here. Fortnite is very single core dependent, which means I need a high CPU clock speed and I need a high, okay, there's no, I'm sorry, it's spelled wrong, but I need a high CPU clock speed. So that means that my single core performance, if we're using that same kind of benchmark analogy, we're going to need a score of 200, and then the multi-core is basically like, as long as, okay, basically we just need a multi-core score that does not bottleneck that. So I think with the Ryzen 3600, it scores somewhere like 1050 points or something, which is insane for 4 cores and 8 threads. Like, for high frame rate gaming now in 2020, and if you're on a budget and you can afford new, which is more expensive than used, I would look at the Ryzen like 3300X or 3100, just because it has such a high single core performance, and because the single core performance is so much higher than, like, let's say a 2nd gen i7, it's almost double of it. the multi-core performance is also double, which yeah, you're basically not bottlenecked on either front. Like you do run, I think, like 80% CPU usage or something, but you're able to run high frame rates and stuff. But yeah, anyways, let's see the live chat here. Do you have 120 or more hertz? Actually, yeah, Francesco also has a good point. Like, the higher the frame rate, the more demanding the system, or the more demanding the game will be to run on the system. Because it's like, if I want to run 144 FPS, kind of as we were mentioning, you need a higher single core performance. And if you need, like, yeah, the higher the frame rate, the more computational power your system needs to do there. Let's see if anyone else has any questions here we can quickly answer. But yeah, I know I didn't do a great job explaining this, but it's super complicated. Like, I wish I could just say, like, okay, do X, Y, and Z, and you'll get your answer you need. But it all comes down to budget. It all comes down to what application you want to run, and it all depends on what is available to you at the time. Because, like, for example, this morning someone sent me a message, and they were like, "Hey, I have 500 pounds. What kind of system can I build?" And it's kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, budget, like, everyone has like a certain budget, but it depends on what's available to you and what application you want to run. Kind of like I just said, and kind of like I said in the beginning of this live stream, it's kind of like you have to work backwards, and you need to yeah, there's a lot to understand in this. Like, it's not that it's difficult, but there's just a lot to know. It's kind of like learning a new language. It's like, at first, all you're learning is like, how do you pronounce things? What does it mean in your language? But once you start kind of like, for example, if you benchmark your system, it's like, okay, let's say Anna Carter, you're looking for an upgrade. Maybe what you can do is you can benchmark your i5 2500 and Cinebench R15. You're like, okay, this is my single core performance. This is my multi-core performance. Then when you look at comparisons to other CPUs, like let's say you benchmark it compared to like a Ryzen 3300X, you might notice like, oh, the Ryzen 3300X has dramatically higher single core performance, and it's like, yeah, it's still like the same 4 cores, but because it has a higher single core performance, it also inherently increases your multi-core performance. Because an i7 2600, like, let's say, well, hyperthreading is a little hard to calculate, but like, if it was just like, here, let me just wipe everything off here. But let's say for a 4-core 4-thread CPU, like, here, let's do this. So i5 2500, you're probably, let's say, just for analogy's sake here, your single core performance is 120 and your multi-core performance is 480, just because we multiply that by 4 cores, and that's how we get our multi-core performance. So with the Ryzen CPUs, obviously they have hyperthreading, so it's a little bit different, but it's kind of like the same deal. Ryzen has 4 cores and it has 8 threads, which basically means it just, like, hyperthreading just helps with efficiency when executing your application. So hyperthreading, basically, you got 2 virtual cores per core, and for single core performance, I think it's ridiculously high. It's like 200, and multi-core performance is like 1050, I think, and it's not like 200 times 4. It's 200 plus like a little bit of efficiency with the hyperthreading, and that's how you get 1000. So that's why when you look at like benchmarks like Cinebench R15, that's where you can get a solid idea of looking at. We can do Q&A now, Marco, if you've got questions. Like, especially that one you put in chat, I can get to that now. You can do Q&A. Let's see. All right, let's see. All right, Anna Carta. When I'm done upgrading my PC, then I will, yeah, of course, accessories. I always recommend, if you're on a budget, put as much money as you can into like your CPU and kind of system itself. Like, you do need a base level of like memory, you do need a base level of like kind of all the parts, but I'd say like for myself, I use like a $5 keyboard I got used, and I use like a $10 mouse. Like, I don't use anything like crazy on accessories, but that's because it's not important to me. I know a lot of people, they want a nice clean setup, and that's where it could be worth sacrificing some performance to get nicer accessories. Let's see. Triple Furious, does T3600 get good stock cooling? Yes, it does. The T3600, I think, gets out of like Z420, T3600, and a Lenovo S30. I think the Yeah, I think the T3600 has really good cooling, because I have put 8 core 16 thread Sandy Bridge parts in the T3600, and they've like, it stayed around like 78 degrees under 100% load, and I did have to go into the BIOS and adjust the fan settings, so it did make a little bit of noise. But yeah, the T3600, like, just as a blanket statement, it has pretty solid stock cooling. And inside the BIOS, you have the option to adjust the fan speeds. All right, let's see. In my Fortnite benchmark video, it seems that the RX 574GB bottlenecks the E5 1620 V2. Are there any GPUs that you suggest? All right, this is actually a good kind of question that you have there as well. Listen, it all comes down to what settings you're looking to run. So, basic first question I'd ask you, what settings are you looking to run? Because this is basically what the E5 1620 looks like. You've got 4 cores, and of course you have 8 threads, but I'm not going to draw them properly. I'm just going to draw a line down the center, and this represents 8 threads. And this here is our single core and multi-core score. I think that CPU scores about 120 single and about 620 multi-core from what I understand. So that puts us at right about here. But yeah, what settings are you looking to run? Because this is where I think if you're gonna buy, like, if it's between buying a better CPU and GPU, I almost lean more towards CPU for specifically games like Fortnite or high FPS shooters, specifically to have that, yeah, better single core performance. But let's see, like, if you're looking to play games like, let's say, Call of Duty Warzone, where you want like nice graphics, basically your GPU is going to be running at 100% because you're running at 1080p high settings and stuff like that, then yes, you're going to be GPU bottlenecked. But in games like Fortnite on low settings, like, I think from what I understand, if you have a good enough CPU, like the RX 570 on low settings can play like 200 to 300 FPS without, yeah, and then it, like, 300 FPS low settings then pegs the GPU at 100%. But like, in Fortnite, you don't need a really good GPU to get like decent frame rates. Like, I was testing a GTX 770 the other day, and I was able to, like, the GPU can handle like 144 FPS, 160, 180 FPS, no problem. And the GTX 770 is quite a bit slower than the RX 570. So like, yeah, listen, you don't really need, like, I wouldn't recommend upgrading the RX 570 specifically for Fortnite. You'd be better off, like, let's say you have the E5 1620 V2, you'd be much better off upgrading to something like the E5 1650 V2, because you can overclock that to 4 gigahertz, 4.2 gigahertz, and then that gives you probably closer to 135 like single core performance. It gives you a little boost on multi-core. You'll probably be closer to, I think, like 900 points here. So then the E5 1650 V2, you've got higher single core, higher multi-core, and you'll get better frame rate. But this stuff's too complicated, man. Like, I wish this stuff was easy to explain, but oh my god. It's too complicated. Like, you have to just watch benchmarks over benchmarks, and if you have no context for computer parts, like, this has got to be a nightmare to build a budget system. And this is when people like look at i5 CPUs just because they're cheaper than, let's say, like an i7 CPU. It can be the worst mistake you make, like when buying budget. Can I do Valorant benchmark with the same configuration? I actually haven't tested Valorant yet, but I can tell you, listen, it's gonna run phenomenally. Like, the Valorant's really, really easy to run. Like, you don't need a lot to run it. Like, this is where, like, for example, I can tell you that without testing it myself because I've looked at benchmarks online, and I can give you a good example here. Let me just throw up this here. I'll open up a Valorant benchmark for you guys. No, actually, let me show you this. Valorant system requirements. Like, you don't, basically Valorant's pretty much on the same level of like system demanding as like CS:GO. Like, yeah, it'll run easily 144 FPS plus for Valorant. It probably, like, because it's more single core dependent, those kind of games, because Riot Games makes League of Legends, which is single core dependent. I'm assuming Valorant will be single core dependent. So yeah, you could probably push like 144, 200 FPS, 240 FPS maybe. I think maybe not 240, but like 144 to 200, easily achievable on that. Is there a BIOS mod for X58 Chinese motherboards? What Chinese motherboard do you have, Marco? You should, like, this is, yeah, I didn't know you had a Chinese motherboard. I thought you had, like, an Asus, what are they called? Like, those Asus Rampage, or I thought you had, like, a normal, like, branded motherboard where you could overclock that way. Let's see. In terms of GPU performance, some people think NVIDIA is better, some people think AMD is better. What it really comes down to is which GPU you buy. It's like, for example, it's like if I said, oh, Intel is better than AMD or AMD is better than Intel, there's no, like, it's like saying, like, oh, I'm better than you at this. It's like, well, and what's the context, right? Because in terms of AMD better than NVIDIA, maybe. Like, in terms of power efficiency, maybe. In terms of, like, price to performance, maybe. It just depends at what you're looking at. NVIDIA has the RTX 2080 Ti. AMD does not. So, in that sense, NVIDIA is better. But if you're on a budget and you're looking for a solid graphics card to play Fortnite or to play, like, let's say, Call of Duty Warzone, AMD absolutely just destroys NVIDIA in terms of price to performance, because you could buy a used RX 570 for 100 US, like, I think under 100 US dollars, pretty much anywhere in the world. You can go to AliExpress. I think they might be like 80 US dollars or something like that, but you can order an RX 570 anywhere around the world for 100 USD, shipped to the door, I'm pretty certain. But if you look at the NVIDIA counterpart, which is the GTX 1060 or GTX 1650, those cards cost almost double, and that's why it's like, it's so silly. Like, people of course prefer NVIDIA. I don't know why. Maybe they do a better job at branding. Well, they clearly do. But yeah, in terms of price performance, like, AMD is just way better. How old am I? Good question. That'll be another time, my friend. But welcome to the live stream. Hey, oh, we haven't seen you in a while. Let's see. Did you change your name there, or are you new to the live stream? If you got any questions, let us know, man. Let's see. Francesco, I can't help you, man, if you're talking in Italian. What brand of RX 570? That's actually a good question. We can go into that here. A couple brands of RX 570. Some of them that I like is the RX 570 Sapphire. I like the Sapphire cards. I think the RX 570... well, let me just tell you which cards to avoid, and everything else should be fine. MSI... no, actually Asus. This card, if you avoid this card, you will not have many problems. It's the Asus Strix RX 570 4GB. This card has given me more, like, headaches than any single RX 570 GPU out there. Like, it's such a... frick, like, I hate this card so much. Like, I have a whole bunch of them, and I'm gonna have to sell them because they're still RX 570s. They still run fine, but the reason I hate this card so much is because the cooling is bad, the clocks on it are too high for the cooling, and the voltage on it is, like, stupid. But anyways, to answer your question, what I would recommend is, if you can get an RX 570, like a Sapphire Pulse, or ideally if you can get a Sapphire Nitro Plus, these cards have some of the best cooling. I own a couple of them. Yeah, let me show you. Like, this is a different model, but, like, this here is what a Sapphire Nitro Plus looks like. They're really, really, really big cards, and they have really good cooling here. You're an Asus fanboy? Well, buddy, this here is the RX. This is an RX 580, but the RX 570 Sapphire Nitro is huge. Like, look at that. Like, it's bigger than my face here. Like, this card is massive. It's got proper cooling. It's got a proper sized heat stack. Obviously, the Sapphire Nitro cards do cost quite a bit more money than, let's say, like the Asus, the MSI, the XFX, but it has the best cooler on the market, in my opinion. But, like, if you want to get more technical, listen, this is also something I wanted to, like, eventually I'll do a video on. Let me just do this here quickly for you guys. Like, the biggest thing in terms of AMD GPUs and making them run cool is to undervolt. And basically what that means is you have your voltage curve and you have your clock curve. So if you run like 1250 on the core at, like, let's say 950 millivolts, whatever model you'll get will run pretty cool. But yeah, in terms of cards I would avoid, the biggest card I would definitely avoid is this card right here, the Asus Strix RX 570. Just because I don't recommend it, like, doesn't mean it's a bad card though, okay? Because I do sell it, and I'm not gonna sell something that's bad. Like, it works fine, but you need to run an aggressive fan curve on it. That's pretty much the only thing with it. And I think Marco Mazzi has a Asus Strix RX 570, so I think he knows what I mean. Like, they run pretty hot. Like, they're still good. Like, they still perform like an RX 570. But listen, when you're looking at different GPUs, like this is where I started to change my perspective when buying cards. Now I look at what kind of cooler does it have. Also, another great RX 570 cooler design is the MSI, what is it called? Gaming X. I love this card as well. It's pretty beefy as well. It's not as beefy as the Sapphire card, but it does use quite a bit less power. So this is also a GPU I would recommend here, the MSI Gaming X. Here, let's see if there's another card I would recommend. MSI Armor is also okay. You will want to, like, the biggest thing with these RX AMD GPUs, if you want them to work out well for you, you really need to look in undervolting and setting custom clocks for them. And basically, you can use, like, the default clocks, but sometimes, like, let's say if I had, like, with those Asus Strix video cards, which sometimes run hot due to their smaller coolers, I like to go into the Radeon AMD Wattman settings, go in there and set a custom core clock and voltage setting, so that basically I'm lowering from the stock voltage. Because yeah, basically in summary, the problem with most AMD RX 500 series cards and even the 400 series cards is that their voltages are a lot higher than they need to be, which basically means it's kind of like driving your car in the red range of your RPM. There's no need to. It's kind of like when you're driving on the highway, you can either drive at 5,000 RPM or you can drive at 2,300 RPM. You can drive the same speed, but one of them uses significantly more gas, runs quite a bit hotter. Like, yes, you do have a little bit more power on there, like it's not going to crash, but there's no need to run that much voltage through there. Let's see. Listen, let me know if you're following along here and if that made any sense. Otherwise, I'll assume you signed off. All right, let's move on to the next question here. Let's see. Is 712 a good score in Cinebench R15? It's relatively decent. Is that in Cinebench R15 or Cinebench R20? Oh, I'm assuming that's Cinebench R... I don't know which one that is. It sounds like Cinebench R15. Anna Carter, if you could please confirm if that is Cinebench R15. Yeah, listen, basically, it's just look at the coolers, and it also comes down to what kind of case and stuff you have. But yeah, I recommend, like, this is where, after working with GPUs, and especially the RX 570 cards for well over 2 years now, I'm starting to look at, okay, like, coolers come first, everything else comes second. Anna Carter, yeah, single core performance, 178 is really good. I think the Xeons that I'm currently running, which are the E5 2650 V2s, they only score about 125 points. Versus yours score 178, which is significantly better. But let's see, you had 712 single core performance. It almost seems like your CPU only has, you might have hyperthreading, but that's an awfully low multi-core score. Let's see. What did you say? You had the i3 9100F? Let me do this. Oh, frick. You have 4 cores, 4 threads. No! Oh, man. I feel bad. 4 cores, 4 threads, buddy. It's dead. Frick. It's dead. Like, okay, Fortnite, you're going to get really, really good frame rate. Like, without a doubt, you'll get really good frame rate and you'll be able to run Fortnite well. But let's say you want to play a game like Call of Duty Warzone. I'm telling you now, you will run into stutter and your CPU will still be pegged at 100%, unfortunately, just because the multi-core performance is not high enough. And that's where, as complicated as everything is and as poorly as I explained it, it's kind of like when your single core performance is good but your multi-core performance isn't, that's where you run into stutter. yeah, if you don't play Warzone, kind of like you understand what application you're running, if you're running Fortnite, then like that's a perfect budget setup. Like you're not gonna have any issues with that. Yeah, you'll probably run Triple Furious. I'll get to your question in just a moment. You're probably gonna be running like, holy shoot, like probably like 200 FPS on that system. Late game, you'll probably be at like 144, 120 lowest. Like that's a solid card there. How about Rust? Rust, I'm not sure. I think Rust is also a pretty demanding game. I can quickly search that up for you guys, but I need to get to Triple Furious's comment as he's been waiting patiently here. Like, okay, when I'm looking for a system and I don't know what it needs, I always just hop on Google and I go Rust system requirements. And then I'll see, oh, it recommends these really garbage processors and stuff. And then I'll go to YouTube and then I'll search up like a benchmark. Rust, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming it'll run Rust. Like, the thing is, if you run into stutter and you're running at 90 FPS, like in Rust, for example, what you want to do is probably cap your frame rate. When you lower your frame rate down, you lower the, basically, I don't want to say like your CPU demanding on the game, or you lower your, holy smokes, we got a lot of messages to get to. But yeah, basically you lower your frame rate, you lower the strain on your CPU there. Alright, Triple Furious. The thing is, I was going to buy another system and was thinking between Z400 and T3500 or going custom. No, why would you go H616 motherboard? Let's see. I could get... No. Triple Furious. I would avoid the... I would avoid 4 cores and 8 threads when you're dealing with like Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge, even Haswell CPUs. I would avoid... Alright, well, let me know when the stream's back online. Please message in chat if you guys can see my stream back up online, because we just cut out. Hydramaz, daily check-in. Welcome. I don't think we streamed yesterday, though. I don't think we streamed. I think we streamed on Monday. Today's Wednesday. But anyways, we were just talking about some CPU stuff. It's back. All right, cool. I need to get better internet, guys. Eventually, I will have a donation thing set up. Maybe in like a year or something, I'll set that up. Because, frick, I need better internet. Ugh, I only have 15 megabits per second upload, and I have to share that with... Well, I'm not paying for it, so I have no problems using it. But yeah, it's I need to get gigabit internet eventually. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, listen, I missed your comment. Sorry. What do you think about AliExpress GPUs XFX RX 580? Have you bought before? I have not bought from AliExpress before any GPUs, but from the reviews I've looked at, they look pretty good. I would personally recommend the RX 570 over the RX 480, and the reason being is with, like, I've had experience with the 400 series and the 500 series of cards, and I find the 500 series cards, like the RX 570, RX 580, they have a lot better kind of, I don't want to say silicon quality, but you can run higher clocks at lower voltages, which overall to me says more efficient. As well, memory speeds, you can run higher memory speeds as a baseline, an overall generalization on the RX 500 series of cards from my experience. This isn't always true. There are some really nice RX 580 models, but overall I would personally recommend going with the RX 570 over the over like the RX 480. And XFX for the RX 570 looks good. I have seen one before. I never used it, but someone actually wanted a computer off me, but they didn't want the RX 570 GPU, so they had their own, and it was an XFX, like the one with the red fans, and yeah, like it looked like it was a really solid card. It had a nice metal backplate on it as well. Yeah, anacarta, you can cap at 60 FPS, and it'll run a lot smoother there. Let's see. So yeah, basically when we're talking about CPUs with, when we're talking about Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge CPUs, now we're getting more technical, but if we want to get technical, this is the perfect place to do it. So this is my line. So this is X79, which covers both Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge. Then we have Haswell, which is going to be just HAS. There's probably 2 S's. Well, and then we have like 6th gen plus no, it's not 6th plus. It's probably like 6th to 8th gen for CPUs there. but I think it's more 7th. But anyways, when you're dealing with X79 platform, that's where you have like a single core. Like, this is technical. For those of you guys who aren't going to follow technical, you're more than welcome to sign off. But we're just, let's see if we can have a bit of fun here. So, okay, single core performance for Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge, which is your 2nd gen, 3rd gen Intel CPUs. They have generally around 120 single core performance score. Now, for multi-core performance, if you want to play the latest AAA titles, I would recommend aiming for like 800 plus. I'm going to take my time to draw this. 800 plus. CPUs that kind of cover those baselines from my experience are the, let me increase the size, are the E5 1650. That's a Sandy Bridge part. It runs way too hot. The E5 2650 V2 is also a CPU that I'd recommend. As well, you can get the V2 variant of this. It does cost a bit more, but certain games that can utilize that higher single core performance, kind of as a lot of you guys are writing in the comments there, the E5 1650 is a solid option. But yeah, nowadays I would recommend, if you're dealing with any processors that are from Haswell or X79, or even, like, I would personally avoid 6th to 7th gen Intel CPUs. I think they're not worthwhile. I would much rather save up, get myself a new Ryzen. But if you're dealing with CPUs from X79, Haswell, basically that's like 32 to 22 nanometers. I personally would recommend going with like the Xeon side of things. You can get a cheap X79 motherboard or a cheap X99 motherboard. I have my own thoughts on X99 and what I recommend, but for X79, I think these CPUs here, V1/V2 for the E5 1650, both are good. And then I think overall, if you want to do 1080p live streaming, the 2650 V2 is a good option there. So Triple Furious, sort of to answer your question, sort of half got on a different topic. I would personally avoid those 4-core, 4-thread CPUs. Now, this is one thing we want to consider. If we're on a budget, BA, I don't know if you'd want to... Oh, you're debating. All right. I thought it said deleting. I can't read properly. But anyways, I'll get to your comment there in a second. Short answer, BA, that'll run well. E5 1650 with an RX 570 will run really well, hands down. You can play Call of Duty Warzone. You can play all the latest AAA title games. Like, it's hands down a good gaming experience. And the funny thing is, because the E5 1650 has a higher multi-core score than the 9th gen i3, theoretically you're not going to run into stutter as soon as, like, yeah, you can run a little bit more on your system than the system that Anna Carter's running, which is a little funny. But it all depends, of course, on the application, because Fortnite, Anna Carter's 9th gen i3 is going to blow you out of the water. But you want to run Call of Duty Warzone, you want to do video editing, like, it'll do well there. All right, let's see. Oh, nice. Yeah, HydraMoz. Dude, just send a picture of how it looks now, and then send one when it's updated. Take the 3 seconds, go click a picture, and of course, if it makes you feel better, you can do what everyone who sends pictures in the Discord says about the computers. You can just say, sorry for the messy room. Like, everyone does that. Like, I don't know. If it makes you feel better, you can put that in the caption. But just share it, dude. I'd be interested to see, because, yeah, I remember... Yeah, you've been following our channel for like many months now, and I remember you were debating on systems. Now you finally got it. Just go and take a picture and share it with the community. Talking about the Discord, I can open up an invitation to you guys in live chat. We do have a pretty strict, I don't know about a strict code, but basically just follow the community guidelines. There is a community guidelines thing. Basically, no memes, no swearing. If anything is kind of like... Yeah, basically nothing. Yeah, just keep it really simple. There's a good community guideline thing, and there's a zero tolerance to any of that stuff. So you like, I will work on a better list of guidelines to follow for the Discord community. But if something doesn't fly, like, you could get booted without any justification. But anyways, it's a good community. You can go in there. You're more than welcome, and actually encouraged. I think there's like one section called like computer pictures and stuff. Share a picture of your build and stuff. Oh yeah, dude, that's fine. HydraMoz, just take a picture of the box and monitor then. Like, that's like, I don't know. Dude, there was a guy who messaged me on Instagram. He showed like he asked the question of like, okay, I got this tiny optiplex system. I'll ask if I can share the picture of his build. But basically, he has a small form factor computer. Then he's got a secondary power supply that he jumped on, and then he's powering a GTX 970 that's connected with a ribbon. It's super cool looking. Here, I'll find it on my phone and then I'll put my phone up like that, and you guys can see what it looks like. But it's a cool looking setup. Like it's a little bit, I don't want to say ghetto, but I mean, I would have done that when I started working with computers and stuff. I don't know if I deleted the photo. I'll find it. Let's see. Did I miss anything in chat? But yeah, BA in summary, the E5 1650, I think it's hands down like one of the best, like kind of one of the best budget kind of entry-level CPUs to play with. And the biggest thing is it's all about good enough performance. You don't need the best. You don't need the latest and greatest. You just need the good enough for what you're looking to run. So for example, when I play Fortnite, one, I never make it to late game because I die too fast, but two, I'm happy to play with 70 FPS. I'm happy to play with 100 FPS, and that's where, depending on what kind of performance you need, yeah, it'll affect what you. I think I might have deleted it, guys. I'm sorry. It was a cool build though. I don't want to open Instagram to find it because that'll take too much time. Like, who wants to watch me? I'm just scrolling away here, but anyways, we'll get back to Q&A here. Better go with the Z400. Wait, Triple Furies, are you saying you're looking for an additional system? And what is it for? Because I thought you said you already have the Z400. Just give me a little bit more context here. Disgusted Spy, welcome to the live stream. I know, it took me like 3 seconds to read. Like, I don't know, the chat's way too small on my screen here. You can triple edit on Fortnite? I don't even, like, I'm so bad at playing Fortnite. I don't want to say I'm so bad. Like, I can run around, I can do my benchmark and stuff, but I can't, like, when some guy is fighting me in a box, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Okay, maybe because my ping and my frame rate's solid, I can just, like, hold a wall or something, but I can't edit, I can't spin around, I can't do 360 no scopes, like, nope, can't do that. And by the time I do see someone and I try to snipe them, like, I can't hit them. Like, my cursor's always off. And 1v1 box fight. Marco Mazza, you should DM good RNG Pro Bro edits. I think if you also play Fortnite professionally, send him a message. He's always looking for good people to play with on the European servers. But yeah, you should send him a message. Let's see if anyone joined our Discord here. Let's see. Welcome. We have Mr. Nobody. Okay, one thing that I will mention, when you do join the Discord server, please, yes, I have bought, I'll answer your question better in a second. I've spent actually tons of money on AliExpress. It's a great option there. But yeah, if you do join the Discord server, please, where it says welcome, say, okay, this is my YouTube name, because I do need to change a custom nickname so I can correlate the names. Otherwise, if you don't do that, I'll have to boot you because I don't know who you are. Basically, simply just hop in, say, okay, for example, Mr. Nobody joined, and he can go in and say, okay, my YouTube name is X, Y, and Z, and then I just switch it and I know who I'm dealing with here. Hi, Jamas. It looks perfect. Thanks for the picture. What is your epic? I think my epic's just Trainer 6 if you ever want to add me. But I don't know what your epic is, so I might not add you. I might not accept your friend request. All right, let's see. Disguised Spy. I'll answer your question in just a moment. Okay, listen, talking about AliExpress. Okay, Anna Carter. Just write that it's you so that when I'm done the stream, I can edit that. Okay, in terms of AliExpress, I think I had... No, that's my AliExpress shopping order list. Here, in terms of AliExpress combos, yes, I have bought them before. I've had a really, really good experience with AliExpress. I've bought a ton of stuff from them in the past. I've bought like well over probably like 30 CPUs, maybe even 40, 50 CPUs over the course of 2 years. Like, I've bought a whack load of CPUs, probably not 50, let's say maybe like 30. I'd say about 30 CPUs. I've bought like maybe 5 or 6 motherboards. I've bought a ton of, mainly CPUs. I don't know why. I mainly just buy motherboards and stuff. And I don't know prices in US dollars well, but I generally do everything in Canadian. But yeah, I listen. Basically what I look for is reviews. If the reviews are good, then I'll order it. And I've had a situation where it wasn't a motherboard, but I ordered some NVMe SSDs from a brand named KingSpec, and they didn't arrive. And all I did is I opened up a claim and I got my money back. Like overall, I've had a good experience with AliExpress. Like if you have a problem, you just send them a message and they'll take care of it. And yes, sometimes it takes a couple months to get stuff straightened out, but I mean, the only reason you'd look at AliExpress is if there's nothing available locally for you. All right, let's see. Your 1K rows? Okay. Let's see. You'll send updated setup once moved. Awesome. Can I look at the X79 Deluxe? Of course I can. I know there's more comments. Deluxe. I might not have spelled that correctly. X79 Deluxe. Honestly, Francesco, I don't like this. See, I'm all price to performance, and when I see a motherboard that costs $90 US, all I think is, well, why do you need this if you could just buy like the Antimeter motherboard for, what was it, like $50? Yeah, like, why do you need this over this? And of course it comes down to like VRM cooling, but I've bought, like, when these were cheaper, when these were cheaper, these Antimeter motherboards, that, like, you have to find a place, of course, where shipping is, like, it costs a correct amount, because I'm not going to pay $16 to have a motherboard like this shipped across. But I have paired E5 2650 V2s with this kind of VRM cooling design, and it's worked really well. And that's why, I know it's technical, but I'll stress again, if you're looking at Chinese X79 motherboards, look at the V2 CPUs. They use a lot less power, and if, kind of like I said in the last stream, if your CPU uses less power, there's less stress on the VRMs, there's less heat on the VRMs, basically more motherboard longevity. And then you don't need as good of a CPU cooler, and there's less heat being pushed into your case, which affects like your GPU temps, your PSU temps. Like, there's a lot of good reasons for that. All right. On this combo, Animator X79, motherboard, mini combos. How much does it cost? That would be my question. Iblisson. Yeah, my question would be, how much does it cost? But then what I'd also look at, yeah, because you want to play Valorant and stuff, so you need a good single core performance. Search it on AliExpress. Okay, what is it? Antimeter combo or something? Let's spell this. Antimeter. Let's see. Combo. What, E5 1620 V2. There we go. I don't know where your combo is, man. I can't find the combo. You'd have to link it, but it won't let you link it there. I know. But basically, like, 4 cores and 8 threads, you're not going to be able to play games like COD Warzone on that system. Like, you're not going to get as high of a frame rate if you get something like the E5 2650 V2, which does cost a little bit more. But the thing is, if you get something like the E5 2650 V2, I'll put some music on because my ears I don't like quiet. Let's see. Oh, it paused when my internet dropped. But yeah, basically something like the E5 2650 V2, the reason I personally work with this CPU and I use it in my personal system is because it's a first link, you said? All right, I'll search it up again for you. But yeah, the reason why I use this 8-core 16-thread CPU is because it turbos to 3 gigahertz. It has about 115, 120 single-core score, and it can play all the AAA title games. It can play single-core games like Valorant, League of Legends, CSGO well, but it also, like, it's a well-rounded CPU. That's why I use it. I'll try to find your combo in a second. Aaron, welcome to the live stream. It's been a while. It's good to see familiar name tags. Thanks for tuning in, man. Open City Skylines music? No, dude, I don't. City Skylines music is like, it's just like orchestra music. It drives me crazy. When I first started playing that game, like, I had to turn the music off after like 2 days of playing that game. Like, it just drove me insane. X79 combo. Let's see if we can't find this combo that he's talking about. 2620 V2. Alright, E5 1620. Oh, it's this one right here. Well, that's not too bad, actually, the combo. Okay, For this antimatter motherboard, you don't need 4 memory modules. It does not support quad channel memory. Last time I bought this, I have bought this specific motherboard before. It does not support quad channel memory, so yeah, listen, you don't need 4x4 memory slots. Like, you could do 2x8, which might be cheaper. I don't know if it is or not. But yeah, it may or may not be cheaper. The reason going with a combo might make sense is because you save on shipping. Oh, this is about the same price. Wait. Oh no, don't buy this. You can't put it. Okay, if you're looking at this combo, which I'm assuming you're not, but if you see this combo, the E5 1650 with this antimatter motherboard, I probably would not buy this just because the E5 1650 CPU, if you put it under 100% load, it's going to draw about 200 watts from the wall, which is going to, like, it's a ton of heat. Like, I'm still waiting for one of my X79 motherboards to come in. Let me see if I can't find what it looks like. X79 motherboard. Let me know if I'm missing any comments there. If you guys have any questions, like, I mean, this is, like, I'm streaming. I don't always stream, so ask away. Let's just put it that way. X79 motherboard. Where's the... It's yellow and ugly. It looks similar to this. I don't think it's this exact motherboard, but I ordered one similar to this. It looked like it had a better VRM heatsink. So when this motherboard comes in, I will be testing it with the E5 1650 just because I want to test a Sandy Bridge CPU that draws a stupid amount of power with the motherboard and VRM to see, does it overheat? Do I feel comfortable working with this? Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, looks like Anna Carter. Then why do I drop FPS to 120 to 70? And you're asking why you drop frame rate on your 9th Gen i3, I'm assuming. My guess is it may, like, I don't know if it is memory or if it's not memory. Like, generally FPS drops is CPU related. Some things you can do to quote unquote, I don't know if diagnose is the right thing. If you have an SSD in your system, you can enable virtual memory just to help allocate a little bit more to the side. But that's a side topic. But anyways, what you can do to kind of watch and see, like, okay, what's potentially causing my stutter is when you're playing your game, as soon as you have a stutter, have what is it called, Task Manager open in the background, and you see how these graphs pulsate up and down. Like, for example, one of the systems, basically the same specs that iBlissin has, or is looking at the E5 1620 V2 with the RX 570, I would get a lot of stutter in Call of Duty Warzone in certain parts of the map, and I'm like, what's causing this? First thing I did is as soon as the stutter happened, I alt tabbed out, and I looked at Task Manager, and I could see one of the CPU threads was capped out at 100%. So that means basically you've hit the limit. Like, you're basically bottlenecked on that one single thread. We're on the multi-core performance. I don't know your specific kind of use, like, see, because I'm not there, I'm not looking over your shoulder, I don't know the specific case, but things you could look at is open up Task Manager when you're running your game. As soon as you have a stutter, alt tab out, and then take a look. Did one of those threads hit 100% even for a second? Because then it's going to be a multi-core performance bottleneck, from what I understand. All right, let's see. Aaron, good question. Can you use the E5 1620 V2 on an X79 Dell motherboard with the T3600? Good question, and unfortunately, no, you cannot. Yeah, with the workstations, this is where you also need to do a little bit of digging. Mr. Pickle, welcome to the live stream. An interesting username. Let me just make sure. Let me just see something quickly here. Oh, you linked it. All right. Got it. Perfect. All right. Let's see. But yeah, you cannot use the V2 CPU on the T3600, and this is this is for all of you who are looking for used workstations, especially on the X79 platform. There's two versions. You've got Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge. The first versions only support Sandy Bridge CPUs. For example, Dell T3600, and then there's the first version of Lenovo S30 and first version of HP Z420. Yeah, they only support Sandy Bridge CPUs, which means they do not work with V2. I found out the hard way. I ordered V2 CPUs, put them in, and they didn't work. Yeah, okay, for V2, there are a little bit different model numbers. And this is where, if you want to do, like, stupid research, you'll learn about CPU block dates and stuff. And basically for the T, if you want a Dell workstation that'll work with V2 CPUs, the model is a little different. It's the T3610. And you can search up this workstation and it uses and this T3610 supports the V2 CPUs. And I'll quickly tangent here. My workstation I'm currently using is a Dell Precision workstation, and kind of along the same lines with the model name, I'm using a T5610 workstation. It's not a T5600, it's a T5610, which allows me to use the V2 CPUs like the E5-2650 V2. Aaron, your best upgrade option in the Dell T3600 is probably, there's two things. If noise is not a problem, then you can get the E5-2689, put it in there, go into your BIOS fan settings, and set it to medium. It'll be a little louder, but it can run stably with the 8-core Sandy Bridge CPU. Otherwise, you're probably just going to want to stay with the E5-1650 as your top CPU for that CPU there. Alright, let's see. Why do I have 96 gig of RAM, Anna Carter? That is a good question. It's because I can. It's because honestly, there's no better question. Like, there's no reason. It's just because I can. It's just because I can, man. It's just because I can. Like, why not, right? It's kind of like, why do I have a GTX 1080? Because I can. And the funny thing is, some people are like, oh, well, why do you have that if you don't need it? It's kind of the same reason why I have a $5 Lenovo keyboard and a $10 mouse. It's because I can. It depends what's important to people. Marco, my case, I just explained. It was the Dell T5610 case. Marco, it's this case right here. Ta-da! This is what my system looks like. And I keep the side panel off actually as well, just for better cooling. Alright, iBlizzin, take care, man. Yeah, glad it helped. Like, yeah, I'm really glad it helped. And I'm glad you guys tuned in, because I wouldn't be streaming if no one was watching. Or maybe I would, who knows. I'm glad I was able to help you guys out there, because this stuff's complicated. Like, I try my best. Like, sometimes I think, like, okay, like, if you look from my perspective, sometimes when when you want to, like, do something, there's always, like, how do you explain it properly, right? Like, if you watch the beginning of the stream, I did a bad job explaining CPU performance, because it's complicated, but you have to try, right? You have to try, and if I don't try, I can't even help you guys in live chat, because I wouldn't have gone live. So, I mean, it's going to be messy, but at least, like, you make progress with messy. Let's see. Andre, awesome you're in chat. You've got a really fun problem. Or situation. Let's see. I just need to quickly catch up with the top of the chat, and I'll get back to you in a second there. Marco, you should send me a private DM, or you should go into voice chat later and chat about the system you wanted to sell locally or whatever. Let's see. Yes, Triple Furious, if you want to build system from scratch, X79 better for value. What? Oh my god, this chat's going way too fast. Or I think my chat disappeared. So yeah, Triple Furious, you're right. T3600 only supports Vivon. So is the i3-9100F a solid CPU for R6, Rust, Fortnite, Valorem, Apex? Also, with the CPU, can I record 1080p 30? Okay, Anna Carter, quickly, guys, I'll get everyone else. You gotta patiently wait. We've got a busy chat here. Okay, Anna Carter, if you want to record while gaming, you're going to need to record through your AMD or NVIDIA drivers. So I personally recommend, I'm assuming you have the RX 570, so you'll want to open up the Adrenaline drivers, and under, I think, record, or you can just search online as well, how to record video using AMD RX 570. Don't use OBS, record straight through the driver. That way you're not gonna, it doesn't tax your system as much. But yeah, recording has more to do now with the GPU. All right, quickly moving on. If you need to do more, just research. Also, Anna Carter, if you find you need to upgrade, depending on what motherboard you have, you can easily get a 9th gen i5. But let's hope it has a hyper-threading, which it may not, which kind of sucks shit. All right, Aaron, you said my system will bottleneck E5 1650. Tried it on Epic, so right? No, Aaron. Ugh. Okay, we got a misunderstanding here. Your CPU is not the bottleneck; it's the GPU, and just because it's a bottleneck doesn't mean it's bad. So, for example, when you're playing Apex Legends, when you're playing Fortnite or whatever, and your GPU runs at 100% usage, that's good. That means you're getting full utilization of your graphics card. which is good, which means you don't need to upgrade your CPU. Yeah, you don't need to upgrade your CPU at all. So yeah, like you have a good situation there. What you might consider looking at, Aaron, is looking for an RX 570. That's the next upgrade step for you. Yeah, you don't have any problems, okay, Aaron? You don't have any problems. All right, iBlisten signed off. Andre, oh my God, Andre, you've got a complicated problem. Yes, you're the guy in the Discord with the problem. Do you know what could make Fortnite use my second CPU? Honestly, not off the top of my head, because like with troubleshooting, man, it's clicking, it's being there, working on the system myself. What I might recommend is make sure you're running in DirectX 11. That's the first thing I would... Yes. DirectX 11. Use DirectX 11. I think that might be your... I don't know. Just let me know if you're using DirectX 12 or DirectX 11. Because I know one of them has incredible stutter and the other does not. Hang on, let's see. Aaron, yes, I am using a dual CPU system, and this is kind of what I was touching on about understanding what use case you have. I'm using dual CPUs because 1080p 60 FPS live streaming is very multi-core demanding. It doesn't need high single-core performance, but it needs multi-core. Yeah, Andre, I'm going to keep thinking about that. It needs a lot of multi-core performance, so that's why I use dual Xeons, because I don't need like, I don't need 200 FPS in game, but I need 60 FPS consistently smooth so I can live stream simultaneously. But yeah, let's see. If you're using like 50% of one and 5% of the second, and I get random stutters in endgame, that's weird. Honestly, Andre, that is weird. Let's see. Your GPU stays at like 60 to 80%. Yes, use DirectX. Hey, Francesco, don't make fun of me here, man. It's hard to answer these questions. Andre, yeah, like, I know there's like there's something going. I don't know what would be the situation. Like, yeah, it's complicated, man. I don't know I don't use our Cinebench R20, but my Cinebench R15 score is about 2050, 2100. That's my Cinebench R15 score. And my single core performance is 117, 120. That might be an option. Aaron might have a good point there. But Andre, you can try DirectX 12, but from my experience, Fortnite stutters like crazy on DirectX 12. But here's the thing, when you're troubleshooting, it doesn't hurt to try. Negative, welcome to the chat. It's been a while. Yeah, Andre, you can try DirectX 12, because at this point, you just want to find out what's going on with your system. So that's where the best thing you can do right now is just try different things. So, hang on, let's see. Bro, do you think... This is funny. Everyone's like, bro, do you think X5650 is enough for Fortnite 120 FPS? Jose Eduardo, welcome to the stream as well. Negative, I don't. I honestly don't think it is enough. Like, I understand that there's a tight budget there, but for X58, honestly, for the best Fortnite experience, you need to save up for a W3680. Like, I don't, like... Yeah, there's honestly only two options that I recommend. X5670 or W3680. Anything lower and you run into issues there. You run into issues. Marco, you have $1 million computer. I don't even mind. Like... Aaron, what are you typing there? So yeah, negative, kind of like I told you in the last stream, and as I've said every single time, I think X5670 is the most budget friendly, and W3680 is the most budget and performance friendly, because W3680, you can use Intel Extreme Tuning Utility, take it to 4 GHz, and now you've got, like, I don't know, a much better single core performance score. Because you have to understand this, the X5670 scores about a 92 in single core performance. Just think about that, 92 in Cinebench R15. Like, it's not impressive. And an X5650 will score probably like an 80 or something even lower, which is bad, which is very bad. versus I think a W3680 once clocked to 4 gigahertz scores like 120, yeah, about 120 points, which is much better. So, of course, people are on a budget and they're like, okay, what do I get? This is my budget. But at a certain point, it's like you need to spend enough in order to make the budget worthwhile, because spending $500 might not make sense, but spending $550 might make a lot of sense. Triple Furious, would it damage motherboard to go to 4 gigahertz? Good question. I don't know 100%. Like, I've done it before. I don't think it will, because like there is a TDP limit set on the processor. Like, my opinion, I don't think it will damage the motherboard. It's a workstation motherboard. Yeah, I don't think it would. Triple Furious, I would recommend you trying it out. Like, it's not a big deal, because you're able to get a lot of HP Z420s for free from a friend of mine. Yeah, you know what? Negative. Like, you might not be able to get 120 FPS. You might not get 100 FPS. But for, like, most games, you can pair, like, an RX 570 or an RX 470 if you want something cheaper with the X5650 and still sell it as a good gaming system. Is it as good as the X5670? No. But is it still good to game on? Yes. And that's where you just find that kind of line of, like, okay, I can't charge as much, but it still performs well. Now, I understand your situation, though. No, Triple Furious, just go in there, poke it all to 4 gigahertz, and you'll be fine. Because this is also the thing with power draw. Power draw goes up as the percentage of your CPU usage goes up. So it's like, yeah, like just clock it at 4 gigahertz Triple Furious, because when you're in game, you're not running your CPU at 100% usage. You're using it maybe at like 50%, 60 tops when you're clocked like that. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But I mean, hey, try it at 4 gigahertz. If you find it makes a difference, leave it. If it doesn't make a difference, you don't need to do it. It's super simple. Let's see. Yeah, Andre, again, if you're still listening in here, man, you're gonna need to just play around. Also, if the GTX Titan, I don't recall, but if it is a dual GPU chip, maybe there's something where it's trying to use one or the other chip. I have no idea. Like, I don't really know whether it's trying to use one or which side of the Titan GPU to run. I'm assuming it's a dual chip. I don't know. I don't know the Titan GPUs too well, but you're just going to need to play around. One question. Can you just change stock CPU heatsink for a Noctua? Aaron, on the T3600, you can't really change the heatsink well. Sorry. Like, I've looked at it, but because the screws on the actual heatsink themselves are a weird kind of thread, yeah, I don't think you can really change them. It's not dual from what you know? Okay. It might not be, because if... Wait a second. Do you have the GTX Titan 6 gigabyte? Yeah, you might have the GTX Titan 6 gig. I'm assuming you have the GTX Titan 6 gigabyte card, so I don't think it's dual. It's kind of like a GTX 780 Ti in terms of performance. No, Aaron, yeah, it is actually good. Like, you don't need to change much with it. It's a budget system. Like, there are other systems out there that you can change parts, but I wouldn't worry too much. The biggest thing, Aaron, is you can go into your BIOS, you can increase your fan speed a bit, but yeah, Andre, like, I'm also puzzled, kind of like what you're puzzled. Like, I don't understand why it wouldn't, like, why you're running into stutter. Like, what I can do is later this week or next week, whenever I get to it, I do have a Dell T5500 workstation with dual X56 75s that I haven't sold, just due to coil whine. It sounds horrendous. That I haven't sold, so maybe I can pull that out and load Fortnite up on it and see if it changes anything. Andre, is it stuttery or does it run smooth on DirectX 12? That's the question. Like, cause yeah, I don't know. DirectX 12 is complicated because, like, once I tried. No, you know what? Fortnite might run better on DX12. There's so many games. I'm getting confused with Call of Duty Warzone because, for example, Andre, if you want to run Call of Duty Warzone, like, that's where you might need to run DX11 versus DX12. Like, it's super complicated. Like, I feel bad for people who are trying to, like, let's say they have a console and they want to buy a budget computer. It's complicated because it's not like you just roll up and be like, well, I know that the W3680 is a good CPU, or maybe it's not. Or, like, for example, there was this video, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I think most of you guys probably saw the video where this guy Tech yesterday made a, I think I brought this up last stream as well, because I was a little bit like, not cheese, but there was some missing information in it. I think it was done well. Like, he's definitely showing that Xeons can game. I always think it's funny when people show FPS, they show the FPS when they're in creative, like, or even when it's endgame, like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyways, gaming PC Xeon, let's see. Let me show you what I think is a little bit funny about this. I'll turn the volume off here. I'll be ending my stream shortly. Alright, let me see. DX12 equals low FPS. Yes, you do get lower frame rate, but you get a more consistent frame time, and if the game runs smoother overall, it can be done well. Okay, guys, let's look at something. Everyone, please take a good look at this motherboard. I'm going to give you like a good 10 seconds, and then I'm going to show you later in the video, and you can tell me if you see a difference. I'll answer some Q&A here quickly. EKSDI, you're getting the E5-1620 with the RX 574 gig. I think that's a pretty solid option. EK, what motherboard are you going to be running with? Because that's, yeah, that kind of affects a lot of stuff. Okay, negative, yes, there is a big difference between X5650 and W3565. The difference with that is, I'll get to that in a second, but I think the W3565 is on 45 nanometers, so it runs a lot hotter. All right, are you guys following along with me? You see this motherboard here, you look at the layout, you look at the heatsink. This is a Dell T3500 motherboard. This here is not the same motherboard. Look at the heatsink. Look down here, it's a different slot. Let me where's the motherboard? Like, okay, does anyone see a difference? Here's motherboard 2. Here's motherboard 1. PCI slot. It's different. And if you want to know what motherboard it is, this is actually a Dell Precision T5500 motherboard. He used registered memory because registered memory works in a server grade motherboard, not a T3500. I'm done my rant. Let me close that. Yeah, you're going with a T3600. That'll run well. What games are you looking to run, EK? Comes down to games, because Call of Duty Warzone, it won't run well on that system, unfortunately. But if you are looking for an upgrade, there is a very solid upgrade. It is the Intel Xeon E5-1650. You can order it on AliExpress. They're really, really cheap. They perform well. I think I did a benchmark. Did I do a benchmark with these yet? Maybe not. Maybe not. But anyways, you can pair like a GTX 1070 with the E5-1650. Like, it performs like well. Like, the E5-1620 will run well in games like Fortnite and stuff for basic higher frame rate and stuff. But if you want to play like Call of Duty Warzone, which needs that multi-core performance, then go with the E5-1650, as that'll be the better option there. Alright. Triple Furious, I already told you. Actually, I did not tell you. Triple Furious, I think the question is more W3680 or E5-1650. I don't think I would look at the 1620 anymore. Quite honestly, I don't think the 1620 is as good. Unless there's one catch. The one catch is if you go... Yeah, EK Game Debate knows nothing. I'm sorry, like, but if you want to look at, like, you need to look at YouTube benchmarks. I've benchmarked a lot of E5-1650 stuff in my channel if you want to look. Like, Game Debate won't tell you what it performs like. User benchmark won't tell you what it performs like. Bottleneck calculator won't tell you what it performs like. You gotta search it up on YouTube, man. But I can tell you right now, it'll run better. Like, you can run Fortnite probably with the E5-1620 during normal matches, like how I play, where I die halfway through the game, so I never make it to endgame. You can run at probably like 100 FPS, 120 FPS smooth. But when you make it to endgame, it will go down to 60. Yes, E5-1650 does run hot, but in a Dell T3600 motherboard where the cooler is actually pretty decent, it'll run cool enough. It'll run under 80 degrees. When I say 80 degrees, it'll run at about 76, 78 degrees, which is perfectly well in spec. Let's see. I think that's going to be pretty much it. I got a whack load of messages while I was streaming here. Let me see. I've got 1, 2, 3 messages that I need to get back to. Before my account says that I do not respond to messages, but let's see. Will it run better in Fortnite? Negative. I don't know exactly. I would assume it does just because you have more multi-core performance, which means loads distributed more evenly, so it'll be a smoother experience, but I don't know for certain because I do notice a big difference between the X5650, no, I mean the X5670, which is the 6-core 12-thread Xeon at 3 gigahertz, compared to like an i7 2600. I notice a big difference there. I like the 6-core Xeon a lot better. I find it's a lot smoother. Yeah, your highest frame rate might not be as high, but overall, it runs consistently smooth. You don't get stutter, you don't get lag. Okay, last thing I will mention to both Triple Furious and EKSDI, and maybe if Aaron's still hanging around, the difference between X58 and X79 is X79, you get access to registered memory, which is kind of like buy memory at 50% off, is kind of what it comes down to. Yeah, on my benchmark, the E5 1620 is smooth. It does run pretty smooth. But in late game, which I never get to because I die and I'm not good enough, the frame rate will go down a little bit. Like, EK, one thing I would say is, like, either's fine. Either option is fine, but I think if you can get a T3600 and you can get registered memory, like, it might be better to go with the T3600. And the T3600 is a little newer. Not to mention the T3600 has a little bit more power from the power supply, so you could put a little better GPU in the future if you needed. But yeah, I would say EK, maybe just get the T3600. It's a pretty nice system. One thing you may have to do is, like, I know it's complicated, but on the side panel of the workstation, which it doesn't show, there is a GPU mount. You do need to take a hammer and a chisel and knock it off. Like, back in October, I bought like 20 of these machines, and I spent literally like a couple hours knocking off all the GPU mounts so the case would close. Yeah, I'll show you. See this? This here is the T5610 side panel, and you can see there's no what is it called, GPU mount thing. I had to take it off. You can see how there's like area, you can't really see it well on this one because I did a good job popping the rivets off, but you do have to do a little bit of modding. But yeah, EK, it'll run well. You can feel comfortable that system will do pretty well there. All right, let's see anything. I have to go soon. Europe or USA? Ketchup or mustard? Francesco, you can't say Europe or USA. USA, cheaper parts. No, like, cheaper parts. Europe, expensive parts. Like, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. And that's why, like, I think it's cool when YouTubers like that guy Tech yesterday made that video talking about Fortnite and Xeons and wow, you can get great performance, but when you miss crucial pieces of information like that a T3500 does not support registered memory, so then he swapped to a T50, like, or a T3500 does not support registered memory, so he swapped to a T50, like, yeah, he swapped the motherboard to the one that does support it. Like, he didn't mention that in his video because I don't think he even understood that. Or he may or may not have, but he did not articulate it clearly. And that's where little information like that causes problems. It's kind of like, for example, if Aaron's looking at LGA 2011, he might see that, okay, the E5 1650 is supported on LGA 2011, but you put it in the motherboard and it doesn't boot, and you're like, well, why doesn't it boot? It's because there's no microcode, like the microcode's not matched. It's different. There's so much stuff. Max upgrade in a T3600 is the Intel Xeon E5 2689. Let me copy and paste it in for you. This CPU here will run hot, like very hot. That's what I'll mention. You will need to, I don't even know, they can't paste it in there. It will run really hot, EK, but you can put an 8-core 16-thread CPU in there. You will have to go into the BIOS. You will have to go into the BIOS and adjust your fan speeds. I'm losing my voice. It sucks. Smash that like button, right, guys? Smash that like button. Oh, it's funny. I got my PC from his video. Oh, from whose video? Hopefully not mine, because the i5 2500 is not a good CPU. Every time I look at a single core and multi-core, they're different. Yeah, they are. Every time you run it, it'll vary a little bit. And it'll vary also between different benchmarks. Anyways, I'm going to be signing off as well. EK, you can't put a V4 or V3 in there. And this is what's complicated about this. I'll be signing off very shortly, but what's complicated is that, anyways, let me just tell you what you can use. For the T3600, you've got two upgrade options in my opinion. You've got the E5 1650 and you have the E5 2689. Those are the two upgrade options that I recommend for you. Oh, tech yesterday? Oh, so you got the i5 2400? Because this is the problem, like, everyone can, yeah, of course I can run a game on an i5 2500 if it's well optimized. I have nothing in the background. I don't have Chrome tabs open, and I only have 8 gig of RAM. Like, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna have to sign off now. Yeah, if you guys need anything, you can always reach me through YouTube comments, or if you do join our Discord server, please, the first thing you must do when you join our server is mention what your name is and stuff, so I can update that. And I don't always reply quickly. I have other stuff on the let's see. Yeah, you bought the i3 9100F is pretty good, honestly. Like, yeah, you will run into some stutter, but anacarder, which you can look at eventually as well, is upgrade to like the 9th gen what is it? Yeah, the 9th gen i5 or whatever. In worst case, you can just sell it and move on and get a different system. 1650 temps in T35 you have tried? Yes, I have tried an E5 1650 and a T3600 back in October of 2019. How to join my Discord? There, I'll send you guys a invite. It'll expire in about 30 minutes. But basically, simple rules for... what do you mean compared to Intel? If you do join the Discord, what you need to do is, like, one, read the community guidelines, which is somewhere in the Discord at the, I think it's one of the text chats. But then two, as soon as you join, say, this is my name from YouTube, and I will add a custom, what's it called, a custom nickname to your, whatever it is, your profile or whatever. Or if you have the option to add a custom nickname, you can do it yourself as well. I'm not 100% sure. The temps are pretty decent. It, like... The thing with the workstations is they automatically raise the fan speeds as soon as it goes above like 76 degrees C. So the temperatures on the T3600 on the E5 1650 is generally around like 76 degrees, 78 degrees. So yeah, under full load. And then when you're just playing Fortnite, it might be like 74, 72 or something. Alright guys, I'm going to be signing off for now. How does the E5 2650 compare? Let's see. Yeah, how does it compare to what? Like, the E5 2650 or 2689 is good. Like, it compares really... Like, it's better than the E5 26... Or, like, you just get more multi-core performance is all I'm trying to say. It uses a lot of power, but you get more multi-core performance. Alright, quickly. Kebosaurus Rex, I'm telling you, buddy. The E5 1620 is on eBay because you realize that it's still a bottleneck. It doesn't run 100%... Like, it's not the perfect upgrade. Is a workstation board better than H61? I'm assuming H61 is E3 1240 V2. Is it better? I think X79 is probably the way to go or something. Like, I don't really know how to answer your question there, Triple Furious. No, it's not. No, it's not comparable to the i7 8700. Like, multi-core performance, it's pretty decent. You get about 1,000 multi-core performance with that CPU, the 2689, but it will not perform anywhere close to, like, the i7 8700. It's probably, like, 20% slower than the Ryzen 1700, but it's not that good. It's just the best option available on that platform. Yeah, exactly. Nice. Kebosaurus, that's a super solid upgrade going to the E5 1650. And yeah, you can overclock them. Once overclocked, you can score well above 1,000 points in Cinebench R15, which is crazy. I say well above, but I mean like maybe like 1,030, 1,020 points. Is AliExpress reliable for buying CPUs? Sam Gabir, yes, I've had a very good experience with AliExpress and buying stuff. CPUs, I've never had a problem so far, and I've ordered probably like 30 to 40 CPUs over the course of 2 years, and I'm going to continue ordering CPUs from them because they're just the best price and they always show up. Andre, the i7 8700K is way better. Like, you can't, I don't know what else to say about that. Anyways, guys, I'm going to be signing off. If you enjoyed the live stream, of course, you can leave a, whatever it's called, a like or something. Otherwise, I will be signing off, and you can reach me in the in YouTube comments and stuff afterwards. But yeah, I'm going to be signing off. Enjoy your day, and until next live stream, take care.